Well, even after the release of the Star Wars special editions and the news that George Lucas was doing another Star Wars movie, everyone got really excited for it.
People were waiting outside the theaters months before it came out. They only watched the movie's trailer and nothing else, and they wonder what would it be like. The hype around this film was so immense that people were expecting something greater by the time the film finally premiered.
But inevitably, the result of it all turned out to be something much worse than we expected. And the film that made people turn away from George Lucas is the very poor prequel, Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace.
When the Trade Federation, led by Viceroy Newt Gunray, has blocked off communication on the planet Naboo in order to have Queen Amidala sign a treaty for trade disputes, they plan to invade the planet and have the Queen sign by force. But two Jedi Knights named Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi were sent to Naboo to help the Queen escape to the planet Coruscant to speak with the Senate about the threat of her home. And along the way, the Jedi meet a Gungan named Jar Jar Binks, who travels along with them. And while they take the Queen to Coruscant, they stop by on Tatooine to stock up on parts for their damaged ship, and come across Anakin Skywalker, who helps Qui-Gon Jinn get what he needs by winning a pod race to help Watto, who Anakin works with, give Qui-Gon the supplies, and also free Anakin. For Qui-Gon notices that he has a high amount of midichlorians, which is what gives one the ability to use the Force, that are in his blood, and Qui-Gon not only wants him to be a Jedi, but also feels that he is the one to bring balance to the Force. And all the while, Senator Palpatine, who in secret as the Emperor, wants the Trade Federation to wipe out the citizens of Naboo after Amidala refuses to sign the treaty, and also sends out his apprentice Darth Maul to deal with the Jedi.
Like what everyone says about this film, it's one of the worst to come out from someone who we looked up for so long that now we don't care anymore.
For who we thought did such great work in the past, would put out something entirely backwards from what was the biggest and best film franchises of all. Even to the point of giving it a 3D re-release that nobody ever saw. The idea of midichlorians being part of the Force is stupid. The race pod scenes, despite it being cool and fun at times, is pointless and long. And the story is so confusing it makes no sense. And there's even a scene where Padme comes up and says she's Queen Amidala, and the other one is a decoy. And then later on, it's switched around. But wait a minute. Why have it begin with Padme saying she's Amidala then? Is it like some sort of Spartacus moment? Or is she Amidala before entering into royalty? This is so mind-boggling, and it is one of, if not the biggest distraction for me in the entire movie. Yeah, all the other stuff is bad, but this one's even worse. I think dressing up like a huge red bell isn't enough to convince me otherwise.
The effects in this might be the best thing ever, but they don't make the film any better.
On the one hand, they are very good looking. With this amount of detail and cool look behind it all, it's surprisingly wonderful. But on the other hand, it's really all over the place, and most of the time, it's pretty awful and awkward, with its characters like Jar Jar and Watto, who looks like the inbreed mix of Gonzo and Alf. Excuse me. So the effects are good, but they're too distracting.
And as for the characters, they really aren't the best.
They would be great characters, considering that some of them return in their younger selves. But even with the new characters interacting with the old characters, it doesn't help that they all follow the same path of monotone speak. Except for the Brits, who pulled off fine, and the animated characters, who breathe more than the live actors. But they are the most stereotypical characters, even though they have no defining place of origin. Everyone says Jar Jar Binks is the most annoying of characters and presents the worst bits of comedy. And I can see why. His voice is annoying, his speech is bad, and every movement or action he makes is really unfunny. Anakin Skywalker comes off as pretty bland and uninteresting, trying to show that he has some enthusiasm to his performance, but it comes off as either cringeworthy or dull. And everyone is just uninvested in the situation they are in. As for the actors that played the characters, they don't work very well. Liam Neeson plays Qui-Gon Jinn, Ewan McGregor plays Obi-Wan Kenobi, Jake Lloyd plays Anakin Skywalker, Natalie Portman plays Queen Amidala and Padme, Ahmed Best plays Jar Jar Binks, Ian McDermott plays Senator Palpatine/Emperor Palpatine, Samuel L. Jackson plays Mace Windu, Ray Park plays Darth Maul, Terrence Stamp plays Counselor Valium, Anthony Daniels plays C-3PO, Kenny Baker plays R2-D2, and Frank Oz plays Yoda.
As a whole, this movie is terrible. The characters are awful, the story is lame, and the effects, well, fine, are too distracting. Director George Lucas has failed to keep all that was so great about the original trilogy that it disappoints on all levels for fans everywhere. And even if this was his original intent, it just doesn't show due to the complicated story, uninvested characters, and too many CGI effects. Thank goodness for the new movies being out, because this one is just an uninteresting mess of a great potential gone down the drain.
So today, this movie we get a rating of... You know what, I'm not gonna bother. Why bother to do something like this? I mean, seriously, what's the point of it all? You know, forget it. I'm not gonna give it any stars. Well, I hope you all had a good laugh, because now I'm going into my real thoughts on the Phantom Menace. Now, something to keep in mind that this is just my opinion, and no one is going to change my mind over it. So, here we go. Now, I know that everyone hates this movie and continues to do so, but even after the releases of Force Awakens and Rogue One, is this really still worth all the hate it's getting? Well, for me, the answer is no, it's not. In fact, it's pretty enjoyable. But before you send me all the hate mail, let me explain. First of all, it's not perfect. And the major problem for me is just the story. It's complicated to understand with talks of negotiations, trade federations, and the signing of a treaty that makes no sense. And the twist of Padme being Amidala's decoy and vice versa is too confusing. Ironically, since both characters were played by the same actress. Yet everything else is all good. I do like the new characters and even younger versions of the old characters, and the actors did a good job. But out of all the new characters in this film, my favorite is Qui-Gon Jinn, mostly because of Liam Neeson. I just like the tone and the dry sense of humor he brings to this character. Anakin's pretty good, and while Jake Lloyd was only a kid back then, he does bring some energy to it, even when going into space with R2. As with Jar Jar, he seems fine. In fact, as a kid, I happen to laugh a few times whenever he says a word that, while not trying to be insensitive, sounds like English but in his own native speech, like excuse me and such. And even when people say he's annoying, Qui-Gon acknowledges this too. But there's also a few things that made me laugh, in the way they're delivered. Like the droid telling Qui-Gon he's under arrest, Qui-Gon's line of there's always a bigger fish, and Jar Jar stepping in animal droppings. Yet the best thing that this film did is present amazing effects. Though while one or two of them don't hold up like Jar Jar and Watto, all the other effects are impressive. The droids, the space scenes, and the pod race, which was cool when I first saw it, and some of it still works. And with the action, it's all pretty good. From the pod race, of course, to the not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 fight scenes going on in the end. With nice explosions, laser firing, and lightsaber duels, which has great music, and Qui-Gon getting killed was, and now is, kind of shocking to me. As for all the other things people complain about, like midichlorians, the acting, and the pod race being pointless and long, I always don't mind because, being a Star Wars fan, I get all the other stuff that makes Star Wars overall so great, like the action, the effects, the sounds, the music, the characters, and even the memorable quotes. But really, does this film damage what's good about the last films? No. It's just Lucas's own way of how he wants Star Wars to be, and no one else's, and I respect him for that. Even the new films having to be out, and another one soon to follow, won't rid the existence or memory of this film or the other prequels. It's like with all the Marvel and superhero movies being out, there's just so many of them, and they are still going, but none of them are going to rid the world of other superhero films like Batman and Robin, Catwoman, or Hulk. They exist to show filmmakers' own take on them, and, for many, how not to make a movie. Sure, people can and will reinterpret this one to make it more better, but it shouldn't be shunned for what it is then and now, given to the fact that more films are coming out. So as a whole, this movie is fun. The characters are pretty good, the story is alright, and the effects are very impressive. Director George Lucas has done a nice job of making a good prequel for what it is. Despite the story having to be complicated and a twist that went nowhere, I still think everything else is enjoyable. And yes, I know a lot of people will disagree with me, but really, it's not so bad, and it's not really any guilty pleasure either. I really enjoyed it as a kid, and I enjoy it now. Sure, it doesn't top A New Hope or Return of the Jedi, but I would put this either before or after Empire Strikes Back, with no regrets whatsoever. And in all honesty, I had fun with it. So today, this movie we're gonna rating of 3 stars. Now, if you don't like my opinion on this movie, then don't worry, because next week I'm going over re-reviews of a couple of shows that I got complaints over for not liking them. Although I doubt it will change my opinion. Well, while we wait for next week to come, here's another review of a movie that I saw in theaters, and I hope you enjoy it. It's morphin' time, if I only wish it were that simple. For it's time to look at a reboot of one of my favorite shows growing up as a kid, Saban's Power Rangers, based on the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers TV series by Hayao Saban, and the original Japanese version called Super Sentai, from Toei Company Limited. The story is about a group of teens living in Angel Grove, who all have a secret shame in the past, and are unliked by many because of it. But in an excavation site, they found special coins hidden in rock, and were given superhuman strength after surviving an accident they didn't remember surviving. But they head back to where they found the coins, and stumble across a fortress where they meet the entity Zordon, and his robot servant Alpha 5. And after telling the teens that they are the Power Rangers, Zordon has them go into training, to not only have the power to morph into their suits and control the Zoids, but to also stop Rita Repulsa, who has returned to create the monster Goldar, and find the crystal that will destroy the Earth if taken away. Director Dean Israelite just didn't make a decent enough Power Rangers movie, and instead have dull characters, a story that's meh, and good effects, but they're not fantastic. As someone who liked the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers as a kid, with its campy humor and fun action, this one as a reboot is just lame. And while there are a few changes that make up for the flaws of the original series, as well as the theme song played once along with cameos of the original cast, they don't really help as much, because all the fun of the original series only happens in the last act, and yet it's not impressive. And I can definitely say that the Power Rangers movie from 1995 was better than this. So today I'm giving this movie a rating of 2 stars. And that is it! So thank you for joining me, like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Facebook or Twitter, and tune in next week for the next video I just mentioned. So, take care.